You're listening to Empowered to Lead, the Therapist Practice. I'm Lisa Catello, therapist, business coach, and your go-to for all things leadership and sustainable practice growth. This is your space for real talk, smart strategies, and grounded support to help you lead with confidence, work with intention, and build a business that actually works for you. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome back to the Empowered to Lead podcast. I'm so glad that you're here. Today, we are talking about delegation again. So this is the fourth one in the series, our final one, but this is important. So today's episode is called, at least today, is called The Delegation Mindset and Why You Can't Grow What You Won't Release. I think it's really important that we talk about what delegation looks like as a group practice owner, clinic owner, mother, leader, whatever the role is that you are playing. A lot of times you may just believe if I just work a little bit harder, if I stay a little bit later, if I just answer one more email, then finally I can get to a place where we can breathe. And so we've talked about that a little bit in the last couple of episodes, especially the last one that I did on my own. So if you go back 2 episodes and named that that's not only not true, it's actually actively hurting your business and your nervous system. And so today we're picking up right off from there, right where we left off, because knowing that you can't do it all is great. You know, okay, we named that, and now maybe I feel pressure. I got to let it all go. Or, okay, I'm not doing any of this stuff. Who's going to do it all? So we want to talk about knowing what you want to let go of it, how to let go of it, and having a different conversation. How do you delegate? Let's have a delegation conversation. That's what we're doing today. So a lot of the group practice owners, clinic owners that I work with don't actually have a delegation problem at the tactical level. A lot of you have created Loom videos so that your therapists and your admin know exactly what you're looking for or how to do things. You can create an SOP, standard operating procedure. You can create a document, a procedures document that lists everything in the office, how to open, close, all of those things. You can hire, you can bring people on, and the problem actually sits a little bit higher up. It's a mindset issue, a belief issue. And until we deal with that mindset, the systems that you build on top of it are going to keep collapsing. So today, we're going to talk about 3 frameworks that I use with my coaching clients in individual coaching, in the group practice connection, in the numbers room. And when you layer them, they form a simple, grounded, delegation-focused practice and create something that works for you rather than you working for it. It creates a flow and freedom for everybody involved in your group practice. So these 3 pieces are, first, there's a tool that I have developed for my clients that's called the Drains and Fills Audit. It's, for lack of a better term, it's energetic. It asks you what's depleting you and what's nourishing you in your leadership role. So that's part of what we're talking about today. The second information or the second piece in what we're talking about today comes from the book Clockwork, Run Like Clockwork by Michalowicz. And he talks about the queen bee role. And so we're talking about that concept. It's strategic, asks you what's the one activity in your business that most delivers on your brand promise, that creates the business that you want and need for yourself and for others. And third, the EOS Delegate and Elevate tool, which is a classic quadrant exercise that a lot of you may already be familiar with from Gino Wickman's book on traction. This is behavioral. It asks you what you love, what you're great at, and compare that with what you don't like and what you aren't good at. So different entry points, and we're all heading in the same direction with each of these pieces. So let's start with the mindset piece, the do-it-all hangover. So before we get into the tools and how to do this, we have to talk about what's actually getting in the way. As a therapist, you know this, understanding what's underneath it all before you can actually make some changes. So I could hand you the most beautiful delegation worksheet in the world, pretty functional, all that things. But if the belief underneath is untouched, or you don't really understand where you're coming from, you're not actually going to use it. You'll use it once or twice. Maybe you'll delegate a specific task, and then you take it back in 2 weeks. So Mike Michalowicz has a concept in clockwork that's called the survival trap. And his definition is something like this. It's when you're responding to something that is urgent rather than what is important. You get that adrenaline rush because you're fixing problems. You feel productive, you feel needed, you feel like you're making progress, but really you're on a treadmill, you're running in place. And I want to slow that down for a second, because what Michalowicz is naming here is that the identity of being the one who holds everything together can feel really good. You started a business, you created something that people were attracted to, you feel needed, you feel like I'm the one that can do all these things and everybody's turning to me. And what happens in that really feeling good is that it's actually killing you in the process. There's a hit of meaning in being indispensable. There's a hit of control. There's safety in if I'm the one who's doing it, I know it's done right. And for those of us, again, who came up as therapists, as helpers, as people who were often socialized to be the reliable ones, this isn't a neutral pull. This is a well-worn, deeply grooved pattern that we're in. And it comes from all different areas of life, reinforced as a small business owner. So the first thing I want to say about delegation is this. You can't delegate out of a pattern you haven't acknowledged. You can't delegate out of a pattern that you haven't acknowledged. If you don't see that your grip is partly about identity, partly about nervous system, partly about the stories that you have been told about what a good leader does, what servant leadership looks like, how you're supposed to give of yourself for everybody and everyone, you're going to keep taking that work back. And there's 4 ways that we trap ourselves. So again, Michalowicz has another piece that I find really useful. He describes 4 ways that work gets done in an organization. So in your business, you're thinking through 4 Ds is the way that he describes it. Doing, deciding, delegating, and designing. So doing is the work itself. So seeing clients, writing the email, doing the consultation call, being the intake coordinator. That's when I talk about working in the business versus on the business, that's a lot of what I mean there. The other D, deciding, is when you've assigned a task to someone else, but they keep coming back to you for permission or clarification. Should I do A or B? Can I send this email? I had this conversation with a potential client. Is that okay? And this is where most group practice owners are stuck right now. They think they've delegated, but they actually haven't. All they've done is distributed the labor while keeping all of the authority. It's still on their plate. Delegating, when you've done it properly, is when you assign both the task and the authority to make the decisions about it. So then the person owns the outcome of it. They understand what the purpose is, what we're trying to do as a result of that task. And they don't need you to sign off because they get it. And that's delegation. Designing is where how are you going to work on the business? And that's where you really should be. You want to be casting the vision. You want to define or design the flow of business. You want to create the systems that people can work within. You want to vision and cast the future. So here's the punchline. Most of you are spending way too much time in doing and deciding, almost none in designing. And when you feel drained because these two modes, doing everything yourself and being the approval bottleneck for everyone else, are exhausting by their nature, you are the pinch point. So when we talk about delegation today, I actually want you to hear it as something bigger than just offloading a task. So this isn't just, how do we get this off your plate? You're talking about, how do I move myself out of deciding, out of doing, and into designing? I want to work on the business rather than in the business. How do I make that shift? So we want to come to next, also kind of following Mike Michalowicz's lead here, defining what the queen bee role is. So if I am designing, if I am working on the business more than in it, what am I actually doing? What am I protecting? So that as I delegate, as I let other people do this, I know what I'm protecting and why. And it's something that you need to sit with properly. So this comes from Michalowicz's study of beehives. Surprise, surprise, queen bee role. So in a hive, there's one bee whose role is existentially important. It's the queen, it's the reason they exist. So the queen lays the eggs. Without that, the hive doesn't survive. And every other bee in the hive understands, in whatever way bees understand things, that their job, their reason for being in this hive is to protect that queen's ability to do that one thing. If the hive gets too hot, then worker bees stop collecting pollen and start fanning the queen to cool her down, because she needs to be able to do her job. Everything bends to protect that one core function. In your business, what is the queen bee role, or the QBR? You want to articulate that on the single activity that most delivers on your brand promise, on what you're trying to accomplish with your group practice. Come back to that why. Why does this group practice exist? What are we trying to provide in the community or for our therapists? And this takes a bit of exploring. It isn't always just a cut and dry answer of, we want to provide counseling for couples in this area. And that may be it, but sit with that. So it's the core function that your success actually hinges on. And so he's clear about this in that book. It's not necessarily the owner. It's not even necessarily one person. It's a role. It's an activity. So let's give you some examples, because you might be going, what the hell is that? So for some group practices, the QBR, the queen bee role, is intake. So the quality of that first phone call, the warmth of the person on the other end who's answering the call or greeting clients, the matching that happens, and then the follow through. How do we get you in? And then if intake breaks down, everything downstream breaks. Clients don't start, associates' caseloads don't exist, or they shrink, and your revenue drops. For some multidisciplinary clinics, the QBR is clinical care itself. So the quality of the hands-on work that the practitioners deliver, everything else exists to protect that hour with the client or with the patient. For some practices, the QBR is clinical supervision, because that's what keeps the team competent, confident, and retained. It helps them to be thriving, to provide excellent work. So you need to name yours. What's the QBR of your unique group practice? So here's a question to ask. What's the one function that If it fails, the business fails. What's the core activity that most delivers on what you promise your clients? And I actually would almost articulate that a little bit more. Maybe it's actually what's the core activity that most delivers what you promise your therapists, because your therapists are the backbone, or are, if they're not taken care of, if you're not protecting them, then they can't actually do good work with their clients. So name that. What's the one function that if this fails, then your group practice no longer exists? So sit with that. Take some time with that. Pause this episode or come back to this point. Don't rush it. Most practice owners have never actually asked this question out loud. How does this relate to delegation? And how does it change your mindset around delegation? So here's why the QBR matters when we're talking about delegation. Once you know what that QBR is, you know what has to be protected. So going back to that, if it gets too warm in the hive, the queen bee can't function. So everybody's figuring out how to cool down the hive. If you know what it is that's being protected, you know what needs to be dropped or delegated or cooled down, turn the temperature down. You know what can be moved off your plate faster than maybe you think it can. You are quite often that QBR, but you might not be. So sit with that. Here's the trap that happens. We treat everything in our business as equally important. So I'm important, intake's important, answering that email as urgently as possible, seeing a client, fixing the website, supervising the intake team. And when everything feels equal, we default to doing the easy stuff first, the stuff that gives you the fastest dopamine hit. And so maybe you are like me, you create that to-do list, and let's just start with the easiest thing there, because then I feel like there's an accomplishment. You clear out your inbox, you do some of those minor things, but you're not actually protecting the QBR. You're not designing the business. So the QBR gives you a sorting principle. It tells you where you want to concentrate your attention, and it actually gives the rest of your team a rallying point. It gives all of you the sense of, the knowledge of, the skills to protect and serve that QBR. And so, how do you know that? How do you identify that? So here's a strategic lens. I want to bring energetic lens, because as a counselor, as somebody who works with the nervous system for a living, I don't believe you can make a good delegation decision just from your head or just from knowledge. You know, if you think of EMDR, there's a belief about yourself, there's an emotion, and your body is telling you something. So your body is telling you things about your work all day long, and a lot of times us as owners are ignoring it. So I've been using this tool that I talked about earlier with my coaching clients. Have been using for a little bit. It's called the Drains and Fills audit. So I'll walk you through how that works. If you get a piece of paper, or if you're sitting on the train, pull out your phone, pull out a note. If you're a spreadsheet person, pull out Google Sheets. List all the roles and functions in your practice, whether they exist with an actual job description right now or not. Here are some ones that you might want to consider. So clinician, supervisor, marketing, cash flow management, HR, intake, whatever the categories are for your business. So list those all in one column. And then with each of those roles, because as a group practice owner, quite often you carry all of those roles. Does this task, this role drain me? Does this role or this task fill me? And sometimes it's going to be both. Supervision might fill you because you love shaping clinicians, or let's actually change that wording. If you're being paid for supervision, that can fill you. Consultation, or maybe supervision of interns. Let's use it that way. You might really love that role because you're shaping clinicians, you're training them, into who you want them to be, but it's also draining you because it takes 3 hours a week that you don't actually have. Both can be true. So name both and then get more specific. In another column, list the tasks that are inside each of those roles. So name the role, quickly say, is this draining me or filling me? Maybe it's doing both. And then in the next column, what are all the tasks involved in order to make that happen? And then for each of those tasks, you mark drain, fill, or both. And you could even ask a third question at another column now, who should actually be doing this task? Whether that position exists or not, maybe give it a name. So if my group practice looked exactly the way that I want it to, this is the person that would be doing that. Or within the function or the structure that we currently have, who could be doing this? What role does it actually fit with the best? And so here's what gets interesting. If you only use a strategic framework like the QBR, you can end up with a very logical plan that you actually will end up quietly sabotaging, because logic says you should delegate bookkeeping, but your body is saying bookkeeping is actually one of the few things that makes me feel like my business is real. And so I don't actually want to give that up. So use that information. You might not actually want to delegate that yet. And if you only use the energetic framework, you can actually end up offloading things that feel like they're draining, but are actually strategically core. So many owners may find intake draining at first because it's so emotionally heavy, but intake might be your QBR. So for you, the answer might not be to hand it off. It's to get supported in it, or to structure it differently. That's going to look different for all of you. The drains and fills tool and the QBR are two different questions. What energizes me? What matters most? And you actually need both. So then another component that you might want to consider is from the Entrepreneurial Operating System, or EOS, which, as I mentioned, is the Gino Wickman framework that's used in a lot of businesses. It's called Delegate and Elevate. I'll link the worksheet in the show notes. You draw 4 boxes. So maybe you start another note or flip the page in your journal. On the top left, love it, I'm great at it. These are the activities where your skill and your energy line up, you're good, and it lights you up. Top right, you like it, you're good at it, you're competent, it's neutral, you can do this. It doesn't drain you, but it doesn't ignite you or light you up. The bottom left, I don't like it, but I'm good at it. So I am really good at it. And man, that was my job before. I used to think, before I had my Melissa, that this was something that I should be enjoying more, but I don't like it anymore. That is not where I get life. It drains me. So this is the quadrant that kills owners, because we're good at it. We know it. And so we keep doing it. And every hour we spend in there drains us, even though the output looks fine. It's accomplishing what it needs to, but it's draining your energy, taking away from who you can be, who you want to be, what that QBR is. That bottom right quadrant, don't like it, not good at it. Delegate yesterday. There is no version of this where you should still be doing it. So bookkeeping is not my strength. I like to know the numbers. I want to stay on top of it, but I am not good at the day-to-day and I don't like it. So that needs to be delegated, because that is not protecting me, is not protecting the business or the QBR. Or delegating it out is protecting that, but me doing it is not. So go through, list everything you do in your week and put each thing in a box. And that'll line up with what we've been doing with the drains and fills thing, because a lot of those tasks are things that you are doing every week, every day. So this is how it layers with the other tools. Here's how I would recommend using all 3 together, because I don't want to just throw a whole bunch of things at you and add more things to your plate. This is where I would start. Start with the delegate and elevate because it's the easiest entry point. Just get everything on the page and into those quadrants. So actually going backwards, using that EOS system, I'm going to put it in the show notes, get everything on there and put it into the quadrants. Don't overthink it. And then run that through a drains and fills spreadsheet, journal. Look at each quadrant and mark what drains you and what fills you. And then that bottom left quadrant, don't like it, good at it, should mostly be drains. If there's something in there that actually fills you, that could be interesting. Put a question mark on it. And then apply the queen bee role lens. Which of these activities that you are doing protects or serves the QBR? Those are the ones that you want to treasure and protect. Those are the ones you either keep or you make sure that you've got team around you or staff and are very intentional about who is doing that role, how you protect that. Everything else in there is a candidate for trash, transfer, or trim. And that language is from Michalowicz as well. Trash means stop doing it. It doesn't matter. That's something that actually is something maybe you started with that you've kept going, but it actually isn't serving the QBR. It isn't serving your business well. Transfer means hand it to someone else. Delegate, pass that on. Trim means it has to happen, but maybe it can take less time or fewer steps. What you're left with at the end of that 3-step process, the auditing, is a clearer picture. Here's what I must keep doing. Here's what has to leave my plate in the next 30 days. And here's what can go in the next 90 days. That is a delegation plan. How do you actually do it? So making this actually come to fruition, not just something, oh, I listened to this podcast and that sounds like a really great thing to do someday. So this is the part that most people skip over. And this is, how do you not sabotage your own plan? So a few things to hold. One, when you delegate the outcome, not just the task. This is the deciding versus delegating line from the 4Ds. If you hand your bookkeeper a task, but you need to keep approving every decision in it, you haven't delegated it. You've created another meeting for yourself. True delegation gives the person the authority to decide how to achieve the outcome. You measure the result, not the steps. Number 2, done is better than perfect. Some of you really need to hear that. Done is better than perfect. Someone else will do the task about 70 to 80% as well as you would at first. And that's actually the price of freedom. If you hand off intake and the first calls are good, but not great, don't take it back. You coach, you improve the system, you stay in your seat, you make sure that they know what the outcome is. You give them the tools, you be curious, give them scripts, whatever that is. Don't take it back. Taking it back is the trap. And what will actually happen there, the more that they understand the outcome, the more you free them up and give them the freedom to make decisions because they understand they're actually going to get better at it than you. Number 3, watch for the identity pull. The part of you that likes being the one that holds everything together is going to try and reclaim that territory. It's going to tell you no one else can do this. They can't do it as well as faster if you just do it. This time is different. This time is different. Notice that voice. Thank it. Say thanks for keeping me alert. And I need to protect that role. I'm going to delegate. I'm going to make sure that whoever is taking this on, or if I'm dismissing it, I understand why, what I'm protecting, and what I need in there. It's going to keep you alive or as you go on. So these things kept you alive and got you to here, but it's not leading you well now. And so release that identity, that pull to keep it. And number 4, last thing, start with one thing. You don't have to do all of these things just because these are really awesome steps to be taking or essential. Start with one of these things, then come back to this and start with the next one. You don't have to have the whole plan. Clarify one transfer that you're going to do, one delegation that you're going to do, or start with clarifying what your QBR is. Identify one thing that you're going to release, transfer, delegate, whatever word you want to use with that. And then spend the next 90 days holding the line on that one transfer. And that's going to be worth way more than any perfect plan you never implement. So here's what I want to leave you with. The practice owners that I know who have built businesses that don't depend on them, who take real vacations, who see their grandchildren, who sleep, who sit down for dinner at home with their family, they didn't get there by working harder. They got there by being very clear about what only they can do and being very honest about what they've been holding on to out of habit or fear or identity. That clarity is available to you. The tools are all right here. You could pick up those other books and fill this out a little bit. So this week, I want you to do one thing. Pick one of the 3 frameworks that I mentioned here. Spend 20 minutes with it. Don't pick all 3. Don't sit down for 4 hours. Pick one, spend 20 minutes, and notice what comes up. Notice what you don't want to write down. Notice, or you write it down and then you check out. Notice where you feel a resistance. That's where your growth edge is. That's where that mentality, that mindset is coming in. And if you want support doing this work, this is exactly what we do inside the Group Practice Connection and in the individual coaching. I'm going to put the links in the show notes along with the tools that we talked about today. And just want to say thank you for being here. I've heard from a few people listening to the podcast and some of the changes that it's making in the mindset of those of us as group practice owners. What I want you to walk away with is that you deserve a business that works for you, not one that works you to death. And I think a huge part of that is learning how to identify your identity as a leader, what you need to release, what you need to protect, and who can do that alongside you. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you're walking away with something. If there's one thing that you're taking away from this, I would love to hear from you. Shoot me an email, lisa@grouppracticenetwork.ca. I want to hear what you're going to start to trim, transfer, delegate, the word that you're going to use, or even just let me know which tool you're going to be using and sitting down with for the next 20 minutes. Have a great day. Thanks for hanging out with me on Empowered to Lead, the therapist practice. I hope you're walking away with something that you can put into action, because leadership isn't about doing more, it's about leading with purpose. If you're ready for deeper support, I'd love to see you inside the Group Practice Connection, my monthly membership where Canadian therapists like you get coaching, community, and the tools to build a business that actually supports your life. You can check it out at grouppracticenetwork.ca. The link's in the show notes. And hey, don't forget to hit follow so you don't miss what's coming next. We're building something great here, and I'm so glad you're a part of it.